truth is, Daemon should be far away from this court.
Daemon is my brother. My blood. And he will have his place at my court.
Let him keep his
Here's
place.
why Daemon betrayed his brother Viserys by mocking his weakness in court. The Targaryen dynasty has always been defined by fire, ambition, and the complicated relationships of those who wear the crown. Yet few moments capture the raw intensity of familial conflict like the infamous confrontation in the Red Keep, when Daemon Targaryen publicly mocked his own brother, King Viserys I, in court. To the untrained observer, it might seem like mere disrespect, but beneath the surface, this act was a calculated betrayal, a deliberate challenge to authority, and a reflection of one of the most complicated sibling relationships in Westerosi history. Today, we unravel the reasons behind Daemon's shocking betrayal and explore why mocking Viserys was more than just cruelty. It was a political statement that would echo through the halls of power for years to come. To understand the magnitude of Daemon's actions, we must first consider the context of his life and character. Daemon Targaryen was not an ordinary prince. He was bold, ambitious, and often ruthless, defined by a relentless desire for power and recognition. From his youth, he had been groomed to understand the machinations of court life, the importance of alliances, and the art of intimidation. Yet unlike his older brother Viserys, who became king and embodied a more measured, cautious approach to rulership, Daemon was impulsive, confrontational, and unafraid to challenge established norms. This contrast between them would set the stage for one of the most infamous betrayals in Targaryen history. Viserys I Targaryen, by contrast, was a ruler shaped by caution, diplomacy, and a deep desire to maintain stability within the realm. He was not a weak king in the traditional sense, but he often preferred negotiation over confrontation, patience over aggression, and prudence over bold action. In a world where strength was often measured by decisiveness, martial skill, and the ability to dominate courtly intrigue, Viserys' style was sometimes perceived as hesitation, indecision, or even weakness. For Daemon, who valued strength, power, and the recognition of personal prowess, this approach was a point of derision and, ultimately, a justification for his public mockery. The stage for the betrayal was the throne room, the heart of the Red Keep and the very symbol of royal authority. Here, nobles, courtiers, and advisors gathered, all acutely aware of the fragile balance of power that defined the Targaryen court. Every gesture, every word, and every glance could have ramifications for alliances, loyalties, and the delicate dance of influence. It was a space where power was performed, reinforced, and challenged, and Daemon understood this perfectly. By choosing this venue to confront and ridicule his brother, he ensured that the impact would be maximum, that the humiliation would be public, and that every observer would witness a Targaryen prince challenging the authority of the king himself. Daemon's mockery was strategic as well as personal. By exposing what he perceived as weaknesses in Viserys' rule, hesitation in military decisions, overcaution in political maneuvers, and a reluctance to assert dominance, Daemon aimed to undermine not only his brother's reputation but also the legitimacy of his reign. To the nobles present, the spectacle was jarring, a prince daring to openly critique the king in front of the entire court. In doing so, Daemon was not just insulting Viserys, he was signaling that the king's authority was contestable, that the perceived strength of his rule was vulnerable, and that Daemon himself might be the more decisive, assertive leader. From a psychological perspective, Daemon's actions also reveal the deep rivalry that existed between the brothers. Sibling relationships in the Targaryen dynasty were often complex, shaped by competing ambitions, differences in temperament, and the pressures of dynastic expectation. For Daemon, mocking Viserys was both an expression of frustration and a method of asserting his own identity. It was a declaration. He would not be overshadowed, he would not be sidelined, and he would ensure that everyone recognized his presence, his intelligence, and his willingness to act where others hesitated. Yet the betrayal was more than mere sibling rivalry. It was a calculated political maneuver. By publicly highlighting Viserys' perceived weaknesses, Daemon was manipulating the perceptions of the court. Nobles who might have been wavering in their loyalties were reminded that even within the royal family, there were divisions, disagreements, and critiques. Allies were forced to consider the possibility that Viserys' judgment could be questioned, while adversaries saw an opportunity to exploit cracks in the king's authority. In essence, Daemon's mockery was a tactical assault, using words, wit, and spectacle as weapons in the larger game of power. The content of Daemon's speech, or rather, his biting commentary was designed to provoke and destabilize. He highlighted moments where he believed Viserys had failed to act decisively, criticized perceived indecisiveness in military or political affairs, and framed these actions as threats to the stability and honor of the realm. Each barb was calculated, each insult carefully delivered to maximize impact without tipping into outright rebellion, at least in appearance. It was a performance, designed to assert dominance while remaining, on the surface, within the bounds of courtly discourse. Yet the risk was enormous. Publicly mocking a reigning king, especially one who was your own brother, is an act fraught with peril in Westeros. It could, and often did, invite swift retaliation, accusations of treason, and potential imprisonment or death. Daemon's audacity in this context is telling. It demonstrates both his confidence and his willingness to challenge authority directly. He was willing to stake his reputation, his safety, and his future for a moment of political theater, knowing full well the potential consequences of crossing the line from critique to open rebellion. The response of Viserys to this betrayal is also critical to understanding its impact. While some kings might have reacted with immediate anger, imprisonment, or execution, Viserys' response was measured, reflective of his cautious style. He could not afford to act impulsively in front of the court. Doing so would risk making the situation worse, alienating allies, and giving Daemon the exact kind of spectacle he desired. Instead, Viserys' restraint highlighted the tension between appearances and authority. He was king, yet his power was publicly questioned, and his ability to assert dominance was temporarily compromised by the audacity of his brother's actions. For the courtiers and nobles witnessing this scene, the implications were profound. Daemon's words planted seeds of doubt, encouraged speculation, and challenged the perception of unity within the royal family. Every noble had to reassess their position. Who was the stronger Targaryen? Who could be trusted, and who might benefit if Viserys were shown to be indecisive or weak? Daemon's betrayal was therefore both personal and systemic, affecting not just the relationship between brothers, but the political equilibrium of the entire realm. It is also important to consider the emotional and psychological dimensions of this betrayal. Daemon's mocking of Viserys was, in part, a reflection of his own insecurities and desires. He sought recognition, respect, and acknowledgement of his abilities. By contrast, Viserys embodied caution, responsibility, and the burdens of kingship, qualities that Daemon often saw as limitations or flaws. The interplay of ambition, envy, and personal pride fueled Daemon's decision to confront his brother in such a dramatic and public manner. This act of betrayal also underscores the broader theme of power dynamics within the Targaryen family. Loyalty, obedience, and deference were expected, yet personal ambition often collided with these expectations. Daemon's speech illustrates how individual agency can disrupt established hierarchies, challenge authority, and introduce uncertainty into political structures that rely on cohesion and perception. In mocking Viserys, Daemon was not merely expressing frustration, he was strategically reshaping the narrative of power in the realm. From a historical perspective, this moment is a defining example of how Targaryen politics were influenced not only by dragons and armies, but by personalities, rhetoric, and interpersonal conflict. The power struggles of the